All right, everyone. You know what time it is. It is another fascinating episode with my dear friend, mentor, attorney, James Auffant. Jimmy, how are you? It seems like it's been a long time since we've seen each other. It really
Well,
does
I
for me.
was in Boston that week and remember, yeah, it's been some time, but it's been a great time and I can't complain. And we are back. And I want to start by thanking our president, Donald J. Trump.
All
Nobody,
right.
but nobody, but nobody gives you so much material in a matter of 2 or 3 days to talk about. Nobody screws up more than he does. And I'm going to start off with the one most recently. Okay, you MAGA hypocrites, you MAGA deniers, you MAGAs who try to call yourselves conservative. Well, your leader isn't. He just made a statement that when my friend and one of my mentors, Bernie Sanders, said that 2 months ago, you call him a socialist, you call him a person who is anti business, you call him a person who was against the American dream. Well, fuck
Mhm.
it. What did Donald Trump say this week? Well, the same exact thing that the US government should get a part of the participation and a part of the profits of AI. It's the exact thing. It's not even different. It's not different companies. It's not, no, no. It's the exact thing.
Mhm.
So, MAGA, I'm calling out. Donald Trump is a socialist. He's an anti business person. He is a person who is against the American dream. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Why would you say that, Jimmy? Well, you said that about Bernie, and I would agree that that is a socialist idea. I would agree that both of them, what's coming out of their mouth, is socialist. I keep hearing you saying, well, it's a sound business thing. And you can't take Donald Trump at his word. You know, that he says things that later he regrets. Yeah, a lot of things that he says he regrets. But that one, he has not corrected. He has not changed it. And when asked more than once if that's what he said yes. And he didn't make any changes whatsoever. Granted, nobody told him that that idea was also from Bernie Sanders, and that if he considered that a socialist idea, but what is good for the goose is good for the gander. So if Bernie's saying it makes him a socialist, so is Donald Trump. That's what I keep saying. It's the gift that keeps giving. There's not a week that we don't have a screw up. So the question is AI. Look, there's a big scare out there that AI is going to put people out of business. And the area is going to put people out of business because it's already put out of business in factories. The reason we cannot bring back manufacturing to this country or to any other place is because really it doesn't create jobs. Cars, if you go to the plants, are done by artificial intelligence. Who do the soldering, who do the put the tires on the car, who do everything is done by artificial intelligence, by what you call robots, but managed by artificial
Mhm.
intelligence. So when people say we're going to bring back factories and we're going to bring back America, I don't know for what, because it's not going to give you jobs. And with all the tax exceptions, it's not going to give us taxes either. But it is interesting. But I'm going to ask a question to all of you. Do you realize that there is a growing anti artificial intelligent movement in this country? And it's not coming from where you think it is. It's coming from rural America, where they're trying to impose and put the big things that these things need with all the machines that create all the noise, that
Sanders.
suck the electricity from everybody else, who basically produce no jobs, zero. Take a warehouse, they set up everything there, and they have one person who checks to make sure that everything's operating correctly. So it's not creating jobs. It's not the future for that. And for the record, they pay very little taxes because they don't do any sales there. There's no sales tax. Property tax, very little because they don't buy the places. They rent the places. So
Mhm.
it's the rural America is getting fed up and pushing back on the needs of artificial intelligence. Why do I say rural America? Because if they put that in Orlando, in any place, trust me, the noise will drive everybody crazy and they will push it up. They're going to rural America, they're going to a part there, and they rent a warehouse and they bring in all the computers, they hook them up, they set them up, they check the electricity, and they make a lot of noise, and they don't produce anything effective for the town. There's been a pushback. So for those of you who are wondering, is artificial intelligence going to survive in this country? If rural America keeps pushing back, yes, artificial intelligence is going to have a problem because it's not going to have the necessary capacity to render the services it needs. But at this point, I would never thought I would say this.
Hmm.
Never thought I would even thought this. As a matter of fact, will be one of those things that if you told me, I would told you were smoking cheap weed. Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are socialists.
Yes, and Jimmy, the president's rationale for taking a recommending that the U.S. government have a financial interest in these companies, AI companies, is because of national security issues, and we already have a financial interest in Intel. And I also believe in a mining company or also a steel manufacturing company. And in the Intel deal, Intel actually made a profit after the government's intervention. Um, for national security reasons, Jimmy, is Trump and Bernie Sanders making the valid point?
Uh, yes and no. Is all artificial intelligence involved in national security? Not sure if that's a safe state. Look, artificial intelligence, the reason we're concerned is going to take away your jobs. Some of it is basically uh, creating images. Okay. Artists are up in arms and is creating images. You have the
Mhm.
people in Hollywood are upset because you give them a theme and they write you a, 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 a movie. Say, David says this, James says this. They write you, yeah, that is not international. Is there part of it that is? Yes. But to paint it over a brush that it's all involved and that it can all be used, no, because some of it's generative, some of it is research, and basically the kind that is really international security, that software, we already have it. We don't publish it, but that one we have it, and that one, as a matter of fact, we don't share with anybody. That's ours. So, uh, as to national security goes, I'm not sure that this is going to be something that we're concerned about. The one thing that I think they are both concerned about, and they won't say, is that there's been a thing that artificial intelligence is going to put us out of jobs. And they're thinking that out of the money that artificial intelligence gives the government, they can then give it to the citizens in exchange of them not being able to find a job because of artificial intelligence, which is going to be an
Mhm.
interesting thing in 25 years when people say, I've been looking for a job and I can't find jobs in my area. And all of a sudden the government starts recognizing, yeah, there are none because they're all been taken over by artificial intelligence. You
Right.
know,
I envision in 25 years, most Americans will be on some type of universal basic income. We'll have a robot or two in our homes, and it will be this utopia of less work and maybe more civic engagement. You never know. But back to the data centers in local communities, I've seen several news reports and a documentary about data centers entering into communities. And I think to myself, along the way, they just don't pop up overnight. They just don't, start constructing without the community knowing, particularly that community's local government knowing that there's permits that need to be issued, so forth and so on, different regulations to be met. And I scratch my head and wonder why those who are complaining after the fact did not participate in the civic process and going to it. Well, you and I have talked about this so many times, and like going to their local, council meeting or commissioner meeting and learning what is being built in their own backyards. I think a lot of this angst against AI and data centers stems from the fact that the community or these communities who've been negatively affected just weren't involved in the whole civic process to find out that this was coming, these centers were coming into their communities.
Okay, well, this is where it becomes interesting. The first thing is, I'm going to use us as an example. Orlando has an over construction of warehouses. Okay, you could go next to Walmart. They have a bunch of them that they just built the other day. They're all around. They're building warehouses left and right. You go down Conway, and where it used to be the agriculture center is now new warehouses.
Surrounded.
Yeah, all that. And basically, I'm going to again use this as an example. They're warehouses. All of a sudden, the U.S. government came to us and said, I'm going to put here a detention center. Then,
Yep.
when the people found out what it really was about, they protested. The problem that is two parts. One, most of them are not building. They don't want to build. They want to rent. So they will go to a place that has a bunch of warehouses at the outskirts of the town, which are empty, and say, hey, we want to rent this. All of a sudden, they give a company's name, and basically they're not going to be manufacturing. No. They're not going to be using great amount of water. No. They're not going to be storing chemicals. No. All the things. And all of a sudden, what they're going to do is be a warehouse full of computers. Then people start wondering, what type of computers are you going to be doing? Desktops? Are you going to be doing laptops? Are you going to be a Amazon distribution center where you're going to be holding the computer? And then when they really find out, and is when they start protesting, because at that point they realize what's going on. And the other thing that people don't understand is the first thing that causes them to protest is not really that it's an AI facility. It's the noise. When people pass by and that noise banging their systems, and what the hell is this? Yes, they jump in and say, oh, I didn't know this was going to cause this noise. So it is not always that they don't know. They don't go in and say, hey, we're going to be building this here. They don't build. They don't want to build. They don't want to own. They go into a community like Orlando that it has over capacity of warehouses, and all of a sudden we're going to rent this, and who's renting it? FIC company, and everybody. Oh well, we don't even know who that is. And what are you going? Chemicals? No. Are you going to be hiring anybody? No. Do you need a lot of parking space? Not really. No. And what are you going to be doing? Computers. And by the way, there's other people who have what you would call computer centers, with big bases there.
The servers.
And basically, they don't make the noise that AI does. And so it's no phenomenon. But to say that the community should be active and looking into what's being built, it wouldn't help much, because right now there's permits in my county, in your county, given out every day for warehouses. What for? I have no idea, because there's an abundance of warehouses here that are completely empty, and we all know it. Go Conway, you're going to find them left and right, and literally, I mean that, left and right. You will find down Conway Road near the airport, a bunch of them. Okay.
Oh yeah, you're right, Jimmy. And they are popping up around the airport. There's no doubt about that. They have been popping up along Conway. I've seen it around the Orange County Agriculture Annex And I was like, whoa, when did that happen? But you're right. Wouldn't there be a special use permits for whatever's happening inside those
If it's a
warehouses?
health hazard, yes. If it's a chemical thing, yes. If it's a storage thing, with all due respect, that's what they're for. They're storage.
Right. Good
So,
point. Good point.
what are you storing? Servers. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. Oh, wait a minute. Now we have, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, to be quite honest, no community in this country has is paying actively what permits are being applied for. And I'm gonna say this even stranger. This is something that I'll call on my county. Orange County's never seen a permit they don't want to grant.
Yeah.
Go in there and you can say, yeah, this is already built. I'm going to be doing this there.
Yeah.
The department doesn't have to come in. Nobody else has to come in. It's just strictly Orange County. Here's your permit. Go and do it.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, and if you think that Orange County is unique, no, it's not. It's not unique. As a matter of fact,
Right.
one of the things that I like to joke is that the city of Orlando keeps giving permits for houses because it needs a more tax basis.
That's correct. I agree with you, sir.
So when
Um,
people tell me, "Oh well, they have 60 days," and normally they go in to get a permit and they get it in within 48 hours.
mhm.
I know that, and all of a sudden, by the time that they get the permit, here comes the truck with the people. Bah, 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 bah. In 2 days, it's hooked up, and let's go.
Wow.
And that is the problem. But it, sooner or later, the truth is that there's been a pushback. So we'll see about that one. It's going to be an interesting day to see how we react to this. But I find it interesting that all these people who are MAGA, because I'm like, my friends who are conservative get offended when I call them conservative because they're not. Okay, conservative have some different values that MAGA people don't, including conservative people. True conservatives do not excuse any war as justified unless we have been unless we have been attacked.
Okay.
That's justified in the Republican mind, uh, Iraq, and Afghanistan because of what happened at 9/11.
Yeah.
We were directly attacked, so that we are threatened every day of the week and twice on the week on Sundays. So any war that is not their choice, the defense is to be used wisely, and a true conservative really wants good relations with the rest of the world. But that's, and for the record, they don't want government telling them what to do. But I'm going to jump
Right.
into something that happened today that is not in the thing, but I think it's interesting to say.
Sure.
Little by little, the president is losing his control over the House and the Senate.
Mhm.
Today happened something in the House, which I'm going to start by calling the lie of the week, which came from Speaker Johnson. He
Mhm.
went out offended and belligerent that the 199 Republicans, I mean Democrats, voted against the continuation of the uh, Section 70, which is that grants the government the right to spy on companies, which
Mhm.
expires tomorrow night, for the record. And by doing it this way, he knew he was going to need 2/3 of uh, majority to pass it, which he knew he didn't have. He
Right.
knew he
Okay.
didn't have. There was no way it was going to happen. But he goes out there. The Democrats are against the government. They're against being able to for this, and that President Trump wants this and that. And at the end, somebody asks him this question: Speaker, what do you say to the 19 members of the Republican Party who voted against this? You cannot control your own uh, group because you have 19 Republicans who voted against this. Well, you have to understand that they have their own. We could justify why Republicans cannot vote against something, but we attack Democrats. This is where we have come. We lie about the things, and we have divided ourselves. Look, the truth of the matter, the 2/3 of the vote were never there. Okay, 2/3 of the votes were never there. Why? Well, he lost 19 Republicans. Okay, that would force to get 2/3 that all but 12 Democrats voted for it. It was not going to happen. The numbers were not there. He went and took a vote that he knew going in he had lost. What he did not think is that he thought he had 10 Republicans which were going to vote against him. He ended up almost with double, with 19. 19 Republicans in the House voted against the wishes of Donald J. Trump. Let's call it out.
Right.
That Democrats voted against Donald J. Trump, no news. No big deal. That's standing operating procedure. 19, including from the great state of Florida.
Which one?
Let me find the name. Cat Kamek.
Wow. And what was the legislation again? What would he do?
This would extend the foreign the
FISA.
right for us to spy on companies that we believe are doing business with either China, which by the way is kind of interesting, Iran,
Yeah.
also interesting, and with other North Korea and so on, and Russia, and okay, that they can spy.
Right.
Or that they think they're selling weapons to some people like Iraq or to other countries that they're not supposed to be selling weapons to. That right. And so was the Pollock case. That basically, he was a manufacturer of homes with a bunch of complaints and has no national security thing, and he wants Donald Trump wants him to be, and Republicans are pushing against him. Look, Lauren Bobbitt voted against it. Okay, so let's not go with that. Chip Roy from Texas voted against it. John Rose from Tennessee voted against it. Keith Self of Texas also voted against. These are not what I would call leftist Republicans. These are what I would call centrist Republicans saying, hey, no, I'm not going to give you the right to spy. So basically, and that is a traditional conservative. Conservatives do not want to give power to the government to spy on them. They really don't. That is a true conservative mind. MAGA is, well, if Trump says it, we do it. That is not a conservative. So, yeah, but he lost 19 members. Now, if that's the only thing that has happened, I would have to say, okay, that would be big news. But let's go into the other things that have. The Safe American Act has died in the Senate. Okay. The money that he wanted for the White House, the $1 billion that he wants for the White House ballroom, died. And I like what Rand Paul said. Trump promised us that there would be no tax dollars used on this, that all the money would come from private donations. Now he wants money from us, which is basically the whole building bill. Okay. Apparently, nobody from private industry has given that much money. Okay. Also has died in there the bill that he wanted with the $1.766 billion to pay these people who broke into the Capitol on January 6th, and all those others that have been done by Joe Biden's weaponizing of the
DOJ.
The DOJ, which is interesting because when the next president comes around, will he find a budget for all of us who have been by the current one? Basically, they went against that. They've also they have sent to the president Bill Pullett is not going to be appointed. He's not. That's why the person went back and said, "Well, I don't want him permanent. I want him there temporarily." And they said, "No, nor temporarily, nor permanently. We're not going to confirm the man. So you could go back and take him back." That is pushback, and that's pushback from the Senate. He's asked them to eliminate more than once the what you would call it the 60 vote requirement.
The
They,
filibuster, right?
they said no, we're not going to do it. He has some judicial appointments that have been retained by the Senate, saying these people are crazy. We're not appointing them. So it's becoming interesting because it's not in the news, but the grip he had over these people, no, is not there. By the way, of the 19, I would conceive that there's 7 that are not seeking re-election, but there's 12 that are, including Laura Abbott from Colorado, who
Correct.
basically has taken on the president face on with no hesitation. So it is interesting to see that there's going to be is there going to be some more pushback? That's a good question. It's an excellent question.
Jimmy, in regards to the $1 billion settlement between the DOJ and Trump over the release of his IRS returns and those of his family, um, seeing that Congress said no and the president has withdrawn that his agreement to take that settlement for the Trump family and apply it to reparations for those who have been harmed by the federal government. What happens to that money now? Do the Trumps get to keep it since it was a settlement with the Trump family?
No, because it would have to be authorized by the Congress, and Congress is telling him in a very fancy way, "Look, we're not stupid. You sued. You put your attorney there, and your attorney decided to agree with you and settle the case. The settlement. I'm the plaintiff, and I'm the defendant, because at the end of the day, the defendant and who represents in court the United States of America is the president of the United States. So I'm suing myself, and I'm giving myself money. It's not going to happen. The Congress
But
is never
didn't
going to raise a penny.
but the settlement was approved by a judge.
Yes, and that and basically and now where is he going to come up with the money? He has to go to Congress, and Congress is not going to pay it.
Wouldn't that open up another lawsuit? But that gets this gets really messy.
Oh,
And
go for it. The problem is that at this point, uh, look, that is not their biggest concern right now.
right, right. And one last thing, I told someone that the money would be used for the J6 defendants, and then they said very quickly, no, this isn't limited to just the J6 defendants. It is open to anyone who is alleging that the United States government has harmed them, and that person is
No,
a
no, 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 no,
advocate.
no.
And,
That's not true.
okay, all right,
The agreement was anybody who could prove that the Biden administration. So, and let me give you an example. If it was
oh,
open to
the
everybody,
Biden administration. Okay,
let me give you an example. During Johnson administration, during Nixon's administration, during Ford's administration, during Carter's administration, and during Ronald Reagan's administration, if you were pro-independence in Puerto Rico, the
mm-hmm.
FBI had a carpet on you, a binder, whatever you want to call it, simply because you believed in. There was no overact. other than maybe talking about it. I think Puerto Rico should be free. And at the end, there was a court order saying, hey, U.S. government, you did wrong to these people. Hey, in U.S. government, I cannot, you have to eliminate these carpets and you must disappear and you need to apologize. Would those people be entitled under this lawsuit? No, because it restricts it to the Biden thing. And you know why they did that?
Okay.
Not if I felt that under the Trump first administration, I was wrongdoing, I could have sued, and they didn't want that to happen at all. So they restricted it to only the Biden administration.
Okay, because
Oh, yeah.
that person was made a case for reparations for black people for slavery, and I was just like,
No,
whoa, but
no,
it doesn't. Okay.
no, it won't even come close. It
Hmm.
is, if you look at it, it's restricted to the wrongdoings of the Biden administration's
Okay.
Department of Justice. So
All
no,
right.
they were
That
not.
makes sense. That makes sense because I think everyone legitimately will have a reason to try to tap into that fund if we're
And, and,
going
and to be quite
back
honest,
250
anybody who
years.
broke into the Capitol on January 6th, I'm not sure if they're entitled to compensation.
Right.
So, but that's
Okay.
me.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, but that was the
Whoa.
settlement was to again to vilify Joe Biden's administration, nobody else.
Mhm. Right. On the national, just to pivot on a national level, we just had another series of primaries. The ones, the two that come to mind that really piqued my interest are the primaries in Maine, where we had Graham Plattner win the Democrat primary for senator, and then of course we had the primary in California, where we had interesting primary, the jungle primary for governor, which had Xavier Becerra
The next
and
governor of California.
the next governor of California. Let's see what Steve Hilton does.
Oh,
The
don't
Republican who made the jungle primary.
daydream as much as you want is not going to happen. Look,
Yeah.
it can't. Let me put it this way: the problem here, and I find that interesting, is what I call the Kennel calling a black other person. Now, you brought national, you put planter. I had to laugh, and I almost fell on the floor. When I heard Donald Trump going after Planter for being a womanizer, I was like, "Yeah, really? You of all people, you have been sued and successfully sued and for say for grabbing a woman improperly and all this. You who's I has your voice recorded on a bus with Billy Bush. That's for the record." Saying that you could grab a woman's pussy because you were famous and there was nothing wrong with that, and that you love women and you are going to talk about somebody else being a womanizer. Oh, well, character counts. If character counts, Donald Trump would not be a president. So let's stop pretending. People want a change. They just want to change.
Well, how
Planter,
far would they go for that change? Since you mentioned Plattner, I mean, he is a flawed candidate. There's no doubt in the
so was
traditional
Donald
sense of
Trump.
candidate.
He's president of the United States.
Yes, that's true. However, I don't think you can really compare the two because Donald Trump
He's worse.
was
I would
an
agree.
American.
Donald Trump is worse.
Hey, we watch his shows. We saw him in movies, and we saw him at sporting events, and we applauded, we cheered,
Where?
and
Where?
then what was well his show, first of all, his show, what is it,
The Apprentice?
what thank you,
Nobody watched?
the Apprentice. But people did watch, Jimmy. You gotta admit, people did watch, and
But
enough people watched,
so what?
right?
Look, at the
Because,
end of the day,
well, Jimmy, it wasn't
in the
until he
day,
became president that people then thought, "Oh my God, it's Mr. Evil." And, you got a guy who is a candidate for senator, who sported for years, who wore the Totenkopf tattoo, the Nazi SS skull on his
Wake
chest.
up. The world has changed. They like the crazy people. That's why you have a crazy president. That's why you have a president that three-quarters of things that come out of his mouth are lies, and the other quarter is a pure lie. You have people
Okay.
who basically look. Even the MAGA people are going to tell me the man is not kind of crazy. They accept it. They think they want to change, and basically
Mhm.
that's what Maine wants. What do you want? Somebody, another stiff person like a Chuck Schumer, or somebody? Look. Right now, he makes. You know who makes him look good?
Who's
Fetterman.
that?
Fetterman. You want to talk about crazy senators? Fetterman. You like it because he votes sometimes with the crazy MAGAs. I understand that. I don't. But when people tell me, "Oh well, he has," yes, he does. But let's call it as it is.
Mhm.
The governor of Maine of 8 years, a staunch Democrat, a
Yeah.
person of integrity, could not compete with him. She jumped out of the race before she was embarrassed and lost it. And the other lady who remained in the race got less than 20% of the vote. Let's call it as it is. The people voted for him. You might say he's a flawed candidate, but if Democrats vote for him that way, he's in. And for those of you, let me repeat myself for the 20th time. It's not about the parties. It's not about Democrats. It's not about Republicans. Right now, in the state of Florida, my state, 40% of the people are registered as NPAs, including a certain person here in this group. Okay.
That would be me. Yes.
Okay. 40%.
40.
And according to all the surveys that have been made, they are really pissed off with the Republican Party. They're really pissed off with Donald Trump, who finally admitted that U.S. has a serious inflation problem yesterday. He admitted that the U.S. has a serious inflation problem yesterday. But I'll go into that a little bit later. But when we're talking about who's going to vote for him, if the and look, first of all, let's start by Maine. Maine has more registered Democrats than Republicans. They have voted for Susan Collins for the last 30 years. And come on, Susan, you're in your 90s. It's time for you to get the hell out of that. You want to talk about a candidate with some faults? Oh, she's a nice lady, but she's in her 90s, okay? She's been there for 30 years. It's time for you to say, hey, let somebody else come in, okay? This thing that they want to keep sucking on the titty, they don't want to let go, it's a problem. And a lot of Americans think that way, both Republicans and Democrats, just for the record, including you, that if it was a Democrat that had been Chuck Schumer, everybody said he needs to go. He's been there for 30 years. Well, yeah, and so has Susan Collins. Okay, MAGA people. So has Susan Collins. Okay, and she's going to go around and say, well, he has faults and this. Look, she's voted with Trump 95% of the time. That's the only thing he has to keep saying. She's voted with Donald Trump 95% of the time. Maine is a Democratic state. The majority of the people registered there are Democrats. That's one thing in his favor. Two, that we won't say, all he needs is 34% of the independents to vote for him. 34%, not 100, not even 50. And with the difference between the majority of Democrats against Republicans in the state of Maine, he is in. Look, if Fetterman could get elected, it's like, this is the first time. No, Fetterman is crazy. As a matter of fact, the most loved and the senator who gets the most votes time after time in his home state, guess who it is?
Florida?
No, it's not even Florida. It's Bernie
No?
Sanders. Bernie
Oh,
Sanders
I'm sorry.
almost 85% of the vote. Okay, the
85.
last time around, the Republicans didn't even put any money to the campaign because they knew it was going to be wasted.
Right.
So,
Right.
and when people tell me, well, yes, but that's Vermont. Yes, and Vermont, Maine are both what I would call Democratic states. So him, he's going to end up there. Get used to that. And this is the new world that MAGAs and young Democrats want. They want a change. They don't want the same stiffs there representative. Look,
But at what cost, Jimmy? I mean, is this a race? I mean, a race to the bottom?
no, it's a race to change. The parties
Okay.
have not learned how to adapt. The parties have not learned how to anything. And maybe, look, how can I say this? Give them alternatives. The only thing you come up with is the establishment on both parties. I'm going to say this
Mhm.
on both parties. You know, uh, Lauren Bobbitt won, and she won heavily. The guy who beat out Massey because Trump said, "This is my guy." And who is Massey? Is Donald Trump going to the bottom? Yeah, I'm going to say this. Don't tell me he's the most qualified Republican because he's not. Don't tell me he's the most statesman in the Republican Party because he's not. Don't tell me he's the smartest person in the Republican Party because he's not. But he came with change. And that's what the American people want. You cannot continue signing to the American people. Why did Kamala lose? Well, everything is okay. Everything is fine. We're going to keep going forward. Fuck it. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. The American people did not want the same. So come this November, there's going to be a big change in the House. There's going to be a big change in the Senate, and it's not going to be towards the Republican. The Republicans have screwed up. Major league. They're trying now to confront Trump, but it's a little bit too little, too late. Hey, the
Right.
question is war in Iran. Yeah, and what have they done about it? Really nothing. They took a symbolic vote, but it did pass from there. Right now, the interesting thing is that's the other thing. The $1 trillion that he's for the
Military.
for the military is not in the budget. It's not there.
Hmm.
So it's going to be an interesting thing. Uh, and now that Donald Trump has acknowledged that there's a 4.2 inflation in this country, and first he fucked up, and I mean that was a campaign manager's nightmare when he said, "I love inflation." That sorry, if a Democrat has said that, this is what I find hypocritical about MAGA. Okay, look what look how senile and stupid Biden sounded. He did. I admit it. If you're a MAGA person and you have any decency and you have any backbone, admit that saying I love inflation is a fuck up because it is.
Hmm.
There's no way around. Okay, there's no way. And then to coming back and say, and this was even fuck up too. Well, I love that it was not that high. That it's only 4.2. Well, first of all, he's admitting that it's 4.2. Okay, he's admitting that it's 4.2.
Hmm. Yeah, he did. Yes.
Okay. Second is the biggest fuck up of them all. He admitted, and, and you have to understand these words because I want to repeat them as he says. The inflation will change and the numbers will come down once the war is over.
He
Now,
did say that.
you know what that is? An admission that the war is the cause of the inflation.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Energy prices trickles into transportation costs, food costs. There's no doubt that the war has
It's,
contributed. I think core inflation, when you strip out food and energy, is it's actually went down 0.02 or 0.2%. But of course, you have energy costs that have contributed to the increase in inflation. Yeah, yeah.
and and previous to that, the inflation was high. And by the way, those of you who do not know this, it was 2.8 in February, it was 3.2 in March, and it's going to keep going on. And why am I going to those months? Because believe it or not, last week we celebrated No, this week, excuse me. We celebrated 100 days of the war in Iraq. And
Yes.
for those of you who think that we have a ceasefire, what happened yesterday does not sound like a ceasefire on either side. Okay,
Mhm.
on either side, that's not a ceasefire. And when today he tweeted that they have reached an agreement, Iran's answer was, "No, we didn't. We've been discussing, but reached the agreement we have. We have been discussing the terms of it, but we have not reached an agreement." So, this is the problem that I have with this is how stupid the American business is. Last week, gas was at 369 because there was an agreement that they were going to open the stretch. Everything was going to be worked out because Donald Trump said that it had been worked out. Everybody
Sure.
found out later it hadn't been worked at all. And that if anything, and I'm going to say this because I know it's not popular, but who fucked up this case was not Donald Trump and it was not Iran. Who was it? Israel throwing bombs into Lebanon, which
Lebanon.
Iran said, as long as you're doing that, I'm not going to sit down and discuss anything. We have to have a complete ceasefire, or otherwise, there. And that is not an absurd recommendation. And it came with Donald Trump calling Netanyahu crazy.
Yeah, he did.
Okay. So, with all due respect, I sometimes I could blame the U.S. for screwing up. Sometimes I could blame Iran. This one is on Israel. There's no other way to put it. They knew they're not that stupid to know that if they bombard Lebanon and put troops going into Lebanon, that you know Iran's gonna say, hey, that breaks it, and it did. It broke it.
Right.
And at that point, everybody started throwing things at each other. It's starting to cease down now, but it is not there. So I'm going to go into the fuck up of the week.
All right. Here
Let
we
me
go.
start. Let me start with the Democrats. Don't be afraid of change. I know that you're afraid that when you supported Fetterman, who has his little quirky things, who's never wore a suit in the hemisphere of the Senate, who would say some weird things at times and could be kind of weird and supportive even of some Republican principles, and who really still believes in bipartisan. Uh, you embrace them because the establishment of the Philadelphia Democratic Party tell you to do so. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but then again, the days of politicians being pure, having no faults, having no past, having never screwed up, and never smoked pot, and never drank, and never done anything inappropriate, those days are gone.
Yeah,
And that was started,
I agree.
believe it or not by the person that you think. Bill Clinton was a womanizer, and everybody knew it. Let's
Sure.
not pretend it. For that matter, so was Kennedy. But that's another story for another day.
Mhm.
We knew it. He had smoked pot when he was in college. We knew it.
Yeah.
And he had a bunch of other faults. And while he was in the White House, he was caught with his pants down, literally. So, yes, we understand. But still, he was a very beloved president in the United States and very popular to this day. He was replaced by George W. Bush, who everybody knew was a convicted DUI offender, but still elected him because they thought he was the right person.
Yeah.
Uh, some people said he dropped the ball on 9/11. Some people say he didn't. Whatever. That's another issue for
Mhm.
another day. He was replaced by Barack Obama, who basically, if we're going to be blunt about it, had served less than half of his term in the U.S. Senate, was a senator in the great state of Illinois, but really brought in Biden because he did not have that much foreign experience or how to deal with the people in Washington. and we elected him, and he did a decent job. Like I say, great job. He did a decent job. After that, we elected a reality TV person, a person who, during the campaign, said he grabbed women's pussies and it was the greatest thing in the world, who was accused of a womanizer, who used some foul language, who used some racist statements, who basically had no experience in anything. And we elected him because the American people were fed up of the suits that were in Washington,
Yeah.
telling them how well they did. And for the record, he beat the first time a woman, and the second time he beat a woman.
Mhm.
Uh, Biden beat him because people realized that he was a liar, he was a cheater, and that basically their lives were not any better. And they elected Biden, who basically the Democrats let him go into craziness. Nothing happened because he couldn't give it an order to do anything. And basically, the independents said, well, let's go with Trump because Kamala is not the alternative. We don't want the same. Yet, you are concerned about Planter. Planter's going to be a senator. Whoa, how can you say that? He's running against
Wow.
Susan Collins. Susan Collins is in her 90s and she's running in a Democrat state for another 6 years. And I don't see the independents voting for her. I don't see the Democrats voting for her. And I think she is out this time. I think what the governor of Maine said when she went out of the race, that he's unstoppable, I would agree with her
Mhm.
statement. Does he have some things that are highly questionable? Yeah, he does. But that's our future. We've been doing this for years, so don't be surprised. Democrats, stop, embrace him. He's going to be one of the U.S. senators, and you know something, he might be the one that gives you the majority. So embrace him. Don't continue attacking. Now let's go to the Republicans. I briefly mentioned some of what the Republicans this week. Look, it's nice that you're starting to rebel a little bit,
Sure.
but realistically, you need to do something. If you think that 4.2 is the lowest or the highest inflation that's going to keep going on, let me put it this way. Last week, gas was 3.69. This week is 3.99. That's 30 cents. And if the bombardments keep going on each side, by next week it might be 4.50. I don't see an end in this world, or I and I mean this with all sincerity to all of you Republicans, Donald Trump has been calling wolf too much. We have an agreement. They are more desperate than us. They need their agreement. Their economy's down. They don't have a defense. Well, I saw a lot of uh, satellites going out and bombarding the region. So for a country that is defeated, I'm kind of interested in what you mean by that. But beating that as it may, inflation is getting out of hand. You have your president who this week admitted that the cause of inflation is war by saying once the war is
Mhm.
over, inflation will go down. So he's blaming the war. Every day that this unpopular war, because I know there's some of you who believe that there's a justifiable cause for this. So that you for Vietnam, and so of you for other wars that I'm just going, really? The truth of the matter is, you're for or against. Gas going up high, food going up high, everything increasing in price because of our dependency on oil, including my electrical bill that I received this month that had a fuel adjustment. Uh, you are going to see a cost in inflation going up. And if this month it was 4.2, and this month ends and with oil at 450 or more, June will be in the 5.5%. And
Wow.
that will be how I'm going to be taken to a nice fancy dinner in a seafood restaurant by David Washington because you keep fucking up. Don't fuck up with the economy. You criticize Biden, rightfully, but the highest his got was 3.8. And there's another problem here that you're not realizing is that inflation is here and salaries are here. And when you have an increase in inflation higher than salaries, you know what you start calling that? A recession.
Yep.
Look, I don't wish anything evil to my country. And the reason I keep bringing this up is because the longer this goes on, the longer and higher inflation is going to go on. Some of you have to become the adults in the room, and the Republican Party sit down and say, okay, we're going to send our people and we're going to settle this. Because if you leave it up to J.D. Vance, he has no capability of doing that. The son-in-law of Donald Trump right now cannot settle the accord to Saudi Arabia or Qatar, or for that matter, the Emirates, because they've said they're not signed in it. And the only reason Iraq signed is because we control them. So I'm going to say this in a very respectful way. White House cannot and does not have the capability of dealing with this war. Iran knows that, and everybody in the room knows that. It's time that we send somebody, that the Senate, the House say, let's send somebody to take control of this, because Marco Rubio, yes, he's a Secretary of State, but he has his nose so high in Donald Trump's ass that he can't breathe other than Donald Trump. So you need somebody who can say, look, no, we're going to sell this. Let's work this out, because this is killing the economy. And there, I agree with Jim Carver. It's all about the economy, stupid.
It is.
So with that, comment. Tell me if you like or dislike the program. At my word, I'm not going to call the MAGA people conservatives, because I know true conservatives get offended. So I stop doing that. But you could always come and we will respond to your comments. But you can subscribe, you can like, you can dislike, but that's what these are. And remember, I have a promise. If some amount of you comment, I will tell you the path to victory for Tony Ortiz and for Ana Escamante to victory next November. With that, I will see you all next week. Take care.
All right, Jimmy. Thank you. We'll see you the next time.
Okay.